Hi friends, Mindy here. I am working on day 3 of Walk This Way from Bythewell4God, and I have another video that I posted that goes through kind of how I do the Bible study portion of this, and kind of the thoughts that I do and the kind of the process. So if you haven't watched that video, that's available if you want to see kind of how I work through that process. This will be more just about the art. But anyway, I'm starting here. I have the flashcard that I pulled out that has the scripture reference on it, and I have pulled out some pattern paper. The flashcard is this kind of that periwinkle blue color, and that's the color that I really want to emphasize. And it's in this paper, but it's only in a few places, and so I really want to emphasize that aspect of this paper. I just think these colors together are going to be really beautiful. So I'm pulling everything out that is that color. My alphas, my little tags, or my little label stickers here, and one of the prescription cards that I will use as a journaling spot. I'm just really pulling all of those out so that I can really pull out that one little color. Sometimes it's nice to kind of use those like little tiny colors that just show up as a little bit, and you can really kind of emphasize them and help bring everything together. It just adds some interest. And so I'm just trimming down that little string. This is the middle of my signature here. But anyway, so these are the papers that I'm going to use, and I'm just trying to decide how I want to do this, because depending on where I put certain things, I'm going to cover up that color, and then it won't even make sense that I have this color on the page. So I really want to make sure that I'm preserving the areas of this pattern paper that have that color in it. So I'm kind of toying with how I want to do the background, and trying to decide. I'm just kind of pointing out here, I really want to make sure that I'm saving those little flowers in this pattern paper that have that color. So that's going to determine what I do with this paper. So I'm starting out, and I'm just deciding to trim. I'm cutting it down just by tearing it. And depending on which way you tear the paper will determine whether or not you have a white border. I did not want the white. Sometimes I do, but today I didn't. And so I'm tearing the paper toward me so that I do not have the white border on it. And I'm just tearing out the sections, making sure to leave, again, the areas that have that blue color in them. And I'm trying to decide how much of this page I want to cover, how much of the other paper in the back that I want to be shown through. I'm working on mixed media paper that I have sewn into a journal, and so I have a pretty good leeway with what I'm going to do to this page, just because it's pretty heavyweight paper. But it's white, so I'm trying to decide how much of that white space I want to be able to see. I decide to go ahead and tear out kind of the bottom corner as well, and leave the top section. And now I'm going to do the other side, and this is kind of where I got a little tripped up a bit, and I'm leaving this process in here because this is so much of how I just go about making these kind of decisions. So I apologize. I know this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal, but I have found it helpful through the years to be able to watch people's processes, and I hope that in recording this will help somebody as well. But anyway, I'm kind of trying to determine where I want to tear this other page so that I can, again, keep that blue color on my paper and get that same kind of torn effect. So I'm kind of tearing again along the top and the bottom, deciding where I want to keep the page and what areas I am going to need to trim. And I am stuck at this point because I really do not like where the center of this page is, how that's looking. That's because it's just such a sharp edge. It's just, just a really straight line there, and everything else is kind of torn and more organic looking. And so I'm really kind of struggling with that. So I'm just trimming down the paper a little bit so that it will fit within this book. This book is about like 5 by 7, I think, is the finished size of it. And so my paper is 6 by 8, if that helps you out. So I'm trimming trimming it down and tearing some edges. And I don't mind if it's, you know, flush with the edge over here on the right, but in the middle, I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling with how that looks. And so I'm trying to just keep moving forward. So I decide to kind of tear out a notch over here on the right side, just to kind of keep it really organic looking. And the background of this paper is really just collaged and everything. And so I want to kind of keep that look, but I'm struggling with that harsh edge. So what I decide to do is just basically just tear again a very thin strip down that left side of that page, just so that I have that organic torn edge on this paper. And when I do that, I will end up liking this page a lot more. Here I'm tearing just, I mean, ever so slightly, just as much as my little fingernail can grab, just to keep, because it's got that blue, and again, I'm trying to keep that blue on this page as much as possible. So at this point, I decided I knew where I was going to go with it, so that really helped me. I just kind of had a flash of an idea. Sometimes that's how it works when I'm working through this. Sometimes I don't have any idea how my page is going to come together, and as I'm working, something will come into mind, and that's what just happened here while I was recording. So I went ahead and trimmed down some more of these areas, just so that I would have that torn edge all along the paper. So basically it's not going edge to edge. And then I'm going to, I realized at this point I wasn't exactly happy now with how much white space I gave myself. So I'm just going to come back and include a few little scraps over here on the left. So it'll be a few little pieces of paper that I'm going to end up gluing down both in each one of those corners, just so they don't have quite so much white space on that left paper, on the left side of this page. I hope that makes sense. But so I decided this is basically how this is going to look once everything's glued down, but I want to put something in the background. So I have these two tissue papers, and one of them has some really beautiful florals, but the brown is wrong. I'm holding it up here. You can see it just didn't look good together. And then the other tissue that I have is just kind of some black and white newsprint. So because of the kind of text in the background paper, I'm just going to go ahead and go with that on the back of, or in the background of this page. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some plastic papers back here, so that I can work, because this is going to get a little bit messy here for a second. And I'm going to use some collage, what is it, matte medium is what I'm going to use. But I decided I wanted to try to pull some of this color into the background. So I'm using a Neo color, and Neo colors are water soluble. The Neo color 2s are. And so when I put the matte medium down, it's going to activate that color and will add some color to the background. Ultimately, it didn't add enough color for what I was looking for, what I wanted. So I'll end up fixing that. It's kind of one of those steps that kind of got lost. But I work around it in the end. So I'm getting ready to collage this tissue on this page. I'm adding some matte medium. You can see here how it activates the Neo color. You can do this with gesso and all kinds of things, but I'm just kind of scrubbing it in there so that I don't have the crayon marks. And then I will add the tissue. And one of the things that is really helpful when you are using collage with tissue, or even with napkins, is if you will tear the paper, tear the tissue, or tear the napkin instead of cutting it. It just gives the edge a nicer look. It just kind of helps it kind of melt into the paper better. So that's one of those, not having like a real harsh line. So you can see here I'm just collaging all around on this right side. And I know, where that big chunk of paper is going to go, so I don't have to collage the entire page. I'm just going around in basic areas, making sure, just checking and making sure that I have excuse me, making sure I have all of the white space as much as possible covered. And then I'm just applying matte medium to the whole page, and I'm just going to use the matte medium to glue down this pattern paper from Bythewell4God. And I'm going to go over the top of it as well. And what this is going to do is kind of, it's going to create a non-porous surface for me to work on and do some other things later. So I'm just making sure there's a good coating of that matte medium on over the top, and that's really just going to seal everything down. And I'm going to let that dry. I've kind of got some bubbles in here, so I'm just kind of mushing it around with my fingers, kind of working, getting those air bubbles out as much as possible. And I will go ahead and do this same process over on the left side as well. I'm going to take like an old card here and just really smooth everything down, because I somehow got some air bubbles underneath there. So this is just kind of getting rid of those so that my paper lays really nice and flat. And now I'm going to do the same process over on the left side, except I'm not going to do the step with the neo color over there, because as you can tell from the video, you really couldn't see it underneath there anyway. So I will add that blue color back, but I'm going to do that in a different way once I have everything on here. So again, I'm just adding the matte medium and a good coat of that, and then the tissue, and then adding the paper back over the top, and then adding another coat over the top of all of that, so everything is good and sealed down. And now I'm trimming off the excess all around. I let that dry first, and then went around and trimmed all of the extra that was hanging off of the page. Sorry if you can hear my air conditioning just kicked on. Anyway, so I have a couple little areas, little tiny corners here where I did not get enough matte medium, so I'm just using a Yoo-Hoo glue stick. This is really good if you like doing collage. It's a really good glue stick to use. And now I have a Faber-Castell big brush marker in this color, and because I created a non-porous surface on here, I have just a few seconds to work with these markers. So you can kind of color them on, and then you can see I'm just taking my finger and I'm just smudging along just to add some shading in the background. I'm going around the edge of the pattern paper and just making that a little bit darker and adding some color to the background where I would have had neo color if that would have been a little bit darker. So I just the big brush markers, they are permanent when they're dry, but if you have a non-porous surface like that, you have a few seconds that you can manipulate them and create some shadows and some depth and stuff. So that's what I did back there. So now I am going to take this piece of white paper and the alpha stickers in that same blue color, and I am going to make a little banner that has the man's name on it. That was the refreshing, and I am going to try to do that for every one of the pages. I did that for day 2 with Barnabas as well, and since we're focusing on people and their impact, I just thought that would be a fun way. Usually I do the titles of the devotional day, but I think in this instance I'm going to just continue on doing the names of the people. So I'm just trimming this down, and I'm going to make a little banner. So I'm going to make a little flag end here. Really simple way to do that. You just kind of start in the middle and cut a slit up, and then from each corner you go to the top of that cut, and it'll give you that V shape on your little flag there. So I'm just gonna put that up at the top. I like kind of that white background, just the bright white, just to kind of give your eye somewhere to rest, because this page is really, really busy. And so it's actually at this point that I'm feeling like it's just a little bit too much. So I have gotten my paintbrush out here and some white gesso. And again, because I'm working on a non-porous surface, I can do this and kind of just ever so slightly kind of lighten up some of these areas. I don't do it all over the thing. I'm just dry brushing little bits of pieces and little areas just to kind of knock some of the intensity of this page back just a little bit. And now I am going to write out the verse, which is 2 Timothy 1:16 through 18. And on this spiritual prescription card, I went ahead and wrote down the quote from Charles Swindoll, which is in the devotional. And if you watch the other video, I was talking about things that I want to include. And so I knew I had wanted to include this quote. And there's some other things and that I know from the devotional that I want to include. So the scripture is obviously one of them. I've talked about that before. I always try to include all of the scripture references in my devotional books when I am not working in my Bible, especially. And so here I'm using the tag to write down the King James Version dictionary definition of refreshing. And I included that as well. And I like to include as much of those kinds of things as I can. And I am struggling to remember what I wrote on that other card. You can probably see it in the close-up pictures at the end. So I am just gluing everything down now and adhering the little stickers here. And then I will add some adhesive over on this side. I'm kind of just creating a cluster out of this journaling card and the flash card and the flower ephemera, and it will just kind of all be connected, and then I will glue that down as one piece. Sometimes I glue things together off the page and then add them to the page as one, especially when I'm kind of making a cluster like that. So now I am adhering my little flag up here across the top with the name, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to use the tile alphas to include day 3, and I'm going to put that right above comfort. And with that, I will be finished with this page. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye-bye.